Hey people, welcome to the Run Testers. Kieran here, and in this video we're going to be talking about Under Armour's latest running shoe offering. It's the new Velociti Wind 2, follow-up to the original first generation. Under Armour tells us that this shoe is supposed to offer light and effortless speed. So does it kind of live up to that billing? Well, we've been run testing it over a fair few miles to find out, and in this video we're going to tell you. Well, let's start with the price then, and the Flow Velociti Wind will set you back £140 in the UK, $160 in the US. Now up top you get Under Armour's warp zonal structured upper, and the idea here is that a series of vertical and horizontal tapes give you structure and support in the right places and flex with the natural movement of the foot, so you can feel held and kind of comfortable and snug and supported without having to add unnecessary weight from overlays elsewhere on the shoe. There's a decent amount of padding in the heel collar, and there's a lightly padded and gusseted tongue to go with that too. All that comes together to make a shoe that weighs in at 241 grams or 8.5 ounces in the men's, 227 grams, around 8 ounces in the women's. That's also a shade lighter than the first generation Wind, and the Wind 2 remains Under Armour's lightest shoe you can get. The midsole uses the same flow foam cushioning system with a single piece outsole, and that delivers the cushioning and durability and traction without the need for any outsole rubber. The idea is that also saves weight. The drop and stack heights stay the same as the original Wind. You get an 8mm drop, 26mm stack in the rear and 18mm stack in the front. Inside there's a 4mm moulded EVA sock liner that's designed to cradle the foot for extra comfort. It's worth noting that these are gender specific too, so there are different shapes for men's and women's too. The other big difference here with Under Armour's shoes is that you're not just getting a running shoe. The Velociti Wind 2 has the same embedded sensor tech in the sole that tracks your runs. This clocks pace, cadence, stride length, distance, and it syncs with Map My Run, offering real-time and post-run coaching tips to help you work on some of those kind of core running form metrics. So you're kind of getting a run tracker and a real-time coach built into your shoes. Let's quickly talk about fit first then, and I ran true to size in this. I went in a UK 8.5, which is the size that I would normally run in. This is a shoe that feels instantly comfortable the minute you put it on your foot. It hugs the foot nicely without feeling kind of restrictive or constricting. There's just around enough kind of room in the toe box. You get a nice hold, and there's sort of plenty of sort of overall comfort in the main areas that you need, into the heel and up around that tongue. So in terms of fit, I would recommend going true to size in these. Onto that all-important run test then, and I've done around about 40 miles in this shoe so far. Worth saying that Mike and I were quite big fans of the original first generation Wind as a shoe that runs kind of firm. And essentially, really, to my mind, what you're getting here is pretty much almost an identical shoe. There's very little to choose between these, I think, in terms of the overall sort of looks, slightly different uppers, but you're also getting a pretty similar ride underfoot. It feels and runs like the One to me. Now, I don't think that's a particularly bad thing at all. I think that these shoes, though they are very firm, a lot more firm than some of those super foam shoes that we've seen come out of recent, I think actually what you're getting here is quite a light, nimble, agile run that's, you know, you can use sort of various different sort of sets of paces, albeit a very, very kind of firm one, which I think is a little bit like Under Armour's kind of trademark. Now, they've got pretty good kind of disappearing kind of feel on the foot. The minute you put them on, you feel like these are shoes that I'm going to be able to run in with comfort. When you first start to move though, that sort of firmness underfoot, but there's not much give in this midsole at all. It doesn't really have any kind of sort of squish and response, and that can be a little bit disconcerting on those kind of first few miles that you get out. But the more that you run in this shoe, I think the more it kind of breaks in and sort of starts to come into its own. But the thing is, the more that I ran in these, I think the lightness on the foot and that kind of far more kind of direct kind of ground contact feel encouraged me to have a faster turnover of my feet, that when I got up to kind of clipping along in these and some kind of steady runs, I actually found them to make me feel and run a little bit more naturally. Initially I had doubts how these might hold up on those much longer distances, like a marathon training run, longer marathon training run, but I'm training for the Bilbao marathon, and I put in a couple of my longer runs, an 18-mile, 3-hour long Sunday run in these, and actually they held up really well over that. They still felt light at the end. I didn't actually feel, I thought I might feel too much of the ground coming through. There might not be enough protection, that you might get a bit of kind of foot fatigue in these. But actually I didn't. I think that's because I was having this sort of quick turnover that I think these kind of light shoes encourage. Now, they're not particularly bouncy and they're certainly not soft, but I still found that they responded quite nicely to upturns in pace as well. So that 18 miler I ran fairly slow, but I have done some quicker interval sessions in these, and I have done some faster miles where I've kind of pushed up to sort of my marathon pace and even a little bit faster, and they've really held their own well. They are, I think just underfoot, light and agile, and you're getting quite a good sort of firm sort of platform from which to run. In the world of those sort of super soft, kind of springy super foams that you're getting with a lot of shoes now that people would use for a marathon, I think these sort of hark back a little bit to a more kind of traditional ride. They're not entirely unlike a sort of Saucony ride sort of feel in terms of the overall shape and what you're getting underfoot. I do feel that actually interesting, I think there's a little bit more response from this foam, even though it's a bit firmer. But back in the day, we all used to be able to run marathon PBs in sort of firmer EVA foam shoes. We probably still can. I think this shoe could hold on and help you race a marathon because of that kind of lightweight. It's not getting heavy over the longer miles. I do think it's a super comfortable run as well. The ride of it, the sort of feel, the way this sort of padded heel collar holds the foot is nice. Your feet just feel well cocooned, nice and snug. And I think that's over those long miles, they're a sort of happy shoe to run in. Now, I'm acutely aware that, that kind of firmness of ride isn't going to be everyone's cup of Gatorade. So, if you don't like that kind of ground contact feel, if you don't like a shoe to be too direct, if you like a little bit of extra kind of softness in that midsole foam, I don't think you're going to get that here. I think you'll probably want to look at something else. But if you do like a bit of ground contact, then you're definitely going to feel this in this shoe. And this might be one to look at. They offer great versatility. I think I preferred them for my sort of shorter, faster runs to a certain extent, sort of maybe up to maybe an hour and a half, those kind of runs where I was pushing a little bit faster. But I think they can cope over a marathon distance too. So there's also kind of good versatility in this shoe. The other thing to note, this sole, because it's quite firm, I think it's going to have great durability. So far over the miles, there's literally nothing going on. That outsole, even though you don't have any of that kind of rubber on the outsole like most shoes, you've just got this one piece. I've run on gravel paths, lots of kind of stuff that would normally cut up a shoe that's got an exposed outsole, got the midsole foam exposed in this kind of way. But that flow foam is doing its job here. That one piece kind of midsole, outsole sort of combined thing. There's barely a scratch on it, and I think actually overall durability wise these shoes are going to hold up really well. As we mentioned earlier, this shoe has tracking skills as well. When it comes to the tracking, I'm going to say the same as I said about the tracking on the Velociti Wind first generation shoe, because basically what you're getting here is exactly the same. This connects with the Map My Run app. It's got a sensor embedded in the sole of the shoe that tracks your run, looks at things like cadence, pace, distance, all of those things, fires data in real time to the app and gives you kind of real-time coaching, gets it back. Overall, I think this is a bonus feature actually in a running shoe. It's not going to replace your running watch, I don't think, for most people. For most runners who already own a watch or, are fairly kind of serious about their tracking, this isn't really going to be a replacement for that. If you're brand new to running and you haven't yet invested in a watch and you're just wondering whether or not you're going to like it and you want to get out there and give it a go, that's interesting from that point of view, because you're going to get a little bit of extra information over and above what you might get just from sticking and your phone on your arm. From the Map My Run and this tracking, and that might be useful. It's good, you get real-time coaching. It gives you some sort of real-time and post-run information about how to fix up some of your running form metrics. So looking to hit, a target cadence or looking to work on your stride length, all of those things. It's kind of useful extra additional information that supports your runs. I don't think I'd necessarily be buying the shoe just for that. So in that sense, it's kind of just a nice bonus feature, I would say. That's how I would treat it. The other thing is, if you want to make the most of Map My Run, you also have to get a subscription for some of it. So there's, if you want to go right into the sort of deep stuff with Map My Run, you're going to have to pay a little bit extra. You can get that real-time coaching and the metrics without, but that's another thing to think about. And also, obviously, if you're already using an app to track your runs, maybe you don't want to use Map My Run and this doesn't kind of connect with the other apps. So that's another thing that's sort of interesting. So my verdict then, well, I think if you liked the Under Armour Flow Velociti Wind 1, you're going to like the 2 as well. I think it's pretty much the same shoe to me. That's how it feels overall. There's not much that's changed here. If you didn't like it, I don't think this is going to make any difference. The changes that have happened here are not going to make any difference, mainly because the ride of it underfoot is exactly the same to me as the Flow Velociti Wind 1. Now I put the Wind 2 into the bracket of kind of a do-it-all daily trainer, really, a sort of versatile shoe, cope at a number of paces, can cope with a little bit of off-road, can cope at a range of distances too. And I really enjoyed my miles in this shoe. It's a different ride than other kind of super foam shoes. It's much firmer underfoot. It does still though feel light and nimble and agile, and I think it's still responsive, and I think there's sort of a naturalness that comes with sort of using this shoe, because it's quite firm, you sort of turn over faster, I feel. But it's a little bit more like a traditional kind of EVA sort of running shoe that might go back a few years. It's also got a nice kind of comfy, well-balanced kind of foothold overall, good lace lockdown. The uppers are super comfortable and it has like that disappearing fit, which is a really nice thing to go out and do those sort of, you know, those middle length kind of runs, you know, half marathons, that kind of distance. So would I recommend that you buy it? Well, I think it's a good shoe. I really do like it. I have enjoyed doing my miles and I think this could slot in easily into a rotation. For me personally, I like shoes a little bit firmer. The biggest problem with this shoe is that the competition it comes up against is really quite fierce at the price point. So you're looking at something like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 2 at this price point, and that is actually a more versatile. I think it's got more kind of pronounced kind of response. It's a little bit more punchy. It's a little bit of a faster shoe. It's something that I think I would be happier to race a half and full marathon in, as well as do my sort of regular training for those kind of events in also. And then you can put it up against some of the even cheaper options like a Puma Velocity Nitro, and it's a really tough comparison for this shoe too. I think also for most people who like something that's a little bit softer underfoot, the Velocity Nitro 2 almost does everything that this shoe does, a little bit heavier, but can cover the same kind of runs and the same kind of training, and you're getting that at a much cheaper price. Sometimes it's been sort of sub 100 on sale, so it's really hard. The other shoe I think that kind of you can put this up against £105, you know, Hoka Rincon 3. Arguably this would be a bit more of a durable shoe than a Hoka Rincon 3, but in terms of that sort of firmness of ride and lightness on the foot and kind of swiftness, bit of kind of range that you get in a shoe, the Rincon is another one that sort of I think goes up against this in competition, and probably based on sort of value for money wins out. Now the final thing to say I think for me is that if you can find the first gen on a deal when this goes on sale, you might be just as well getting the first gen, because I think there's, as I've said before, there's not much to choose between these. So if you can pick up a bargain, you're pretty much going to be getting the same ride from that shoe. So overall, I think a really good shoe. I do like it. I think it's one of Under Armour's better shoes by far. I loved running in it. I do like the uppers. I do find it's a zippy shoe. I think it makes me run personally in a more natural gait. I think it's sort of, I feel like I'm making my feet do some of the work and kind of, you know, naturally protecting my knees a little bit more than in some of the other kind of super foam shoes where you're getting a kind of squish and response and a bit more kind of bounce. I do think there's a brilliant amount of stability in this shoe as well. So if you need a bit more stability, I do think that's got something over some of those super foam shoes. It's just that it doesn't quite stand up in terms of the sort of the comparisons perhaps. So there you have it. That's been my quick review of the Under Armour Flow Velociti Wind 2. If you have any questions about this shoe, hit us up in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for other shoes that we've got coming up soon. We've got lots of videos coming your way with some really exciting shoes. We've got some really exciting tech to talk about too. So you'll get notified. If you ring that bell, you'll get notified when those videos hit the channel. Thanks as ever for watching. We hope it's been useful, and yeah, we hope to see you again soon on the Run Testers.